Okay, so the next movie I'm going to be reviewing is Wrong Turn, which came out in 2003 and is directed by Rob Schmidt. The first Wrong Turn is the only movie in the whole franchise that was theatrically released. Um, so the plot of the movie is a businessman is trying to get to Raleigh for a business meeting. But he gets stuck in traffic and he's like, well, I can't sit here forever, so I'm going to have to try to figure out another way to get there. So he's like, I think he said he has to be there by 7 p.m. So he goes to this gas station and he asks the gas attendant, he's like, do you know another way to get to, where I need to go? And he's like, yeah. He's like, uh, no, I don't know. And then, the business guy, he looks at, what is his name again? Chris. He looks at, the map, and then he sees a Beaver Road, or Beavertown Road, I think. And he's like, what happened to this place? And he goes, oh, he's like, yeah, he's like, but, you could try it, but you gotta go at your own risk, kind of thing. He's like, no one really knows about that road. And he's like, I don't even know why it's still on the map. And then he drives off, or Chris drives off, and then the, gas attendant's like, well, you better be careful, so something's gonna happen, cause he's the harbinger. Um, while he's driving, Chris is driving on the back road, like, when he first pulls up, there's Beavertown Road, I think, or Beaver River, I forgot the name of the road, and there's another road, and he's kind of like doesn't know which one to choose, and he goes, oh, I'll go down the Beaver on whatever the road's called. And while he's driving down there, he is messing around with the CD, and so he's not paying attention to the road, and then he sees a dead deer on the side of the road that's like cut open and shit, and then he looks, and then he hits a car that's parked in the middle of the road, and he crashes, and then like a group of friends run up and they go, hey, why did you hit my car? And my parents are gonna be pissed. And he's like, they start arguing a little bit, and then there's this one guy in the group named Scott who is like the only likable one, even though he is kind of annoying. He's like the more reasonable one, and he's like, hold on, dude. He's like, we'll go with you and we'll try to figure out what's going on or what we can do and all that to help each other. And so him, Chris, and three other people from that group, the camping group, I guess, which is Scott, Jesse, and was it Carly maybe? Yeah, Carly. I'm sorry, I had to look at. I don't remember their names. They go off and try to find a phone or whatever, and Chris is like, well, I went to this or Jesse said, I saw this gas station back there, maybe we can go see if we can use their phone. And Chris is like, well, I tried, they don't have a phone, or the pay phone doesn't work, and all that, because he did try to use the pay phone up there and it didn't work. So they go, okay, so we'll see what's going on. So they're walking, and all that, and they come across this abandoned house, and then they're like, oh, this looks creepy. This is an old rundown wooden shack kind of thing, like a cabin, and there's like cars everywhere. And Chris is like, well, let's go in and see if they have a phone. And Scott's like, you can't just walk into someone's house like that. He's like, even though we're out in the middle of nowhere, he's like, I think he says, have you ever seen the movie Deliverance? Because I think this movie is set in West Virginia. And he's like, well, whatever. He's like, I need to get a phone. I need to get out of here. So they go into the house, and they go in, and they see like the house is trashy and stuff. It looks like a crack house. But like more, they just start seeing more weird things, like, you know, it's dirty and disgusting. And then they like find body parts everywhere and stuff. And then the one girl, she goes into the bathroom. Carly, yeah, she goes into the bathroom, and there's a dead body and like decaying in the bathtub. And she starts freaking out. She's like, "We need to get out of here." And they're like, "Yeah." And then this truck oh yeah, they go into a fridge and they find like body parts in the fridge and stuff, and they're like, "Whoa, we need to get out of here." So they're trying to get out, and this raggedy old truck drives up, and they're like, "Oh fuck!" So like they have to hide, and so Chris and Jesse hide under like beneath this table, and the other two, Scott and Carly, they're like, they're engaged. They hide in like, I think the bathroom maybe. But the hillbillies come in, and they killed the campers that were together, you know, Jesse, Scott, and Carly. They killed two of their friends that stayed behind, and they bring their bodies in and start, you know, chopping them up and stuff. But the thing I found weird was, like, how the fuck did the hillbillies not see Jesse and Chris underneath the table? Because I mean it's not that low. There's no covering over them. I mean, it's like plain as day. You could see them. I mean, because the hillbilly drops not gloves, fingers or something on the floor, and like they're not that far away from like where he dropped them, and he gotta move away and stuff so you don't get caught. I just thought that was weird. Like, I always thought that was weird, but it's like, you know, it's obvious, like they could just like step down and see him clear as day. And then, but there's a really cool shot where they're chopping up the person, and like the camera goes through, there's like a little keyhole like in the bathroom where Scott and Carly are hiding, and it goes through the camera goes through the keyhole, and it shows the Carly's eye, because Carly's, you know, standing in front, Scott's standing behind her covering her mouth, and shows her eyes, and she sees them cutting the girl up, and not, or the guy up, whoever it was. And I thought that shot was pretty cool. I forgot to mention at the very beginning of the movie, there's a couple mountain climbing, and like the husband, because the movie starts off like really fast, like you know what kind of movie this is. They're mountain climbing, and the husband gets up there first, and then the wife's still climbing, but she's slipping and stuff because she's not used to it. I think she said it was her first time rock climbing, and you know, she's like, I forgot what her husband's name was, but she's like, pull me up, I'm not playing, can you just pull me up? And then, like, you see the husband's body just flop over, like, the side of the cliff, and, she starts freaking out, and then the hillbillies, like, release the little ratchet, I guess, like, for the rope when she's climbing up, and she falls down and dies, and then that's how the movie starts. So you already know what kind of movie you're getting into. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So, after all that happens, where they're hiding from the cannibals and see their friends getting cut up, the cannibals fall asleep. So, they're trying to sneak out of the house. And something happens where they're making, I forgot what happened. They're trying to escape out the door. It's just like one of those swinging screen doors. And, so, it makes like a, you know, squeaking sound. So, like, Chris, like, grabs, like, the hinge part or whatever to silence it. And, so they're, like, going out, you know, sneaking out and shit. And then something happens, and one of the hillbillies wake up, and then, like, you know, the other three run to the truck, and then Chris, like, no, never mind. No, the other three already ran up the cliff or something. Ran up the cliff, and then Chris is running up the cliff. And then they come across this junkyard, basically like a junkyard. It's like this field with like a bunch of cars, like abandoned cars, and they find out like, oh, they've been kidnapped. They've been doing this for a while because like they find blood stains on the cars and stuff and people's belongings, and it's like they're like they've been doing this for a while because there's like tons of cars, and it kind of reminded me of the scene from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre when they go to the house and they see like all the abandoned cars at the house and stuff. But so the hillbillies pull up in their raggedy truck, so they're trying to hide from them, and they come up with this idea. They're like, oh, we'll make up this I'll devise this plan. Chris is like, I'll go run off and distract them. But when he does I'll run off to distract him, and then you guys go off that way to get the truck, because the hillbillies jump out the truck and leave it running for some reason. So Chris runs off, but they're shooting at him, and they shoot him and injure him. So Scott's like, well, fuck this, I'll do it. So he runs off, and he manages to get out unscathed. So they go after him, the hillbillies, and then the girls and Chris, they run back to the truck and jump in the truck. So Scott's running through the woods, and then 3 hillbillies are after him, and then the campers or whatever are driving in the truck trying to find him. And like Scott's like fucking booking it through the woods, and then he runs. And then they're like, come on, hurry up. And like, he stops, like that. And they're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And then he gets shot again, and then you see like arrows sticking in his back and like blood coming out the front. And you're like, oh yeah, he's fucked. And then, kill him and he dies. Then they go up to the house. They're escape into the woods, and they're on foot again. And they're like, the fiance's like, freaking out and having a breakdown because she just saw her soon-to-be husband died. And they're like, come on, we gotta do what we can to get away from these hillbillies. So they find this fire tower or something. I forgot what it was, like a watchtower. So they're like, oh, let's hide up there. So they hide up there, and they find, like first aid and, what do you call that? Glow sticks? Yeah, glow sticks. And, they find a radio. And they're like, oh, we can, call someone. And they do. And then the hillbillies are coming by, because it turned dark really fast for some reason. It was like daylight, like freaking pure daylight, and then it turns dark. But they're like, oh shit, we gotta cover everything and all that. But they leave the radio on for some reason, and the hillbillies hear it, and then they're like, oh shit. So the hillbillies try to climb up to go get them, and then they throw stuff down onto like the hatch, so they can't get in. But then the hillbillies trying to burn them out. So they're like, oh, we gotta get out here somehow. And the one girl, I guess she was trying to kill herself. And they're like, no, what are you doing? She's like, I'd rather jump than get burned alive. And then Chris was like, no, she's right. And then, this is like one of the best scenes out in the movie. So they jump down onto these tree branches, and they start running around the tree branches, and the hillbillies are like following them and stuff. And then Chris is like, well, here, he pulls like back a tree branch, and he said, I'll distract them and hit one guy out the tree. And he said, and then we can try to get away. And then, Jesse's like, no, I'll do it. I'll distract him. So they knock one dude out the tree, and then the other girl, she's running around. And then one of the I think it was Three Fingers, the main hillbilly in the movie. He goes up to her, and she's standing there, walk across the tree, and then all you see is this axe come, hit her in the mouth, and then smack against the tree, and then you see her face like all you see is the top half of her head, and then the rest of her body, and then the camera pans down, and you just see the rest of her body fall down into the trees. I was like, damn, that's like the best death in the movie. Then it's, Chris and Jesse left, and then they get captured, or Jesse gets captured by the hillbillies, and then Chris hides underneath the hillbilly's truck, like he hooks up underneath the truck, and then there's a big old showdown and stuff, and yeah, you think that the hillbillies are dead, but they're not. That's why we have 6 sequels to the 6 movies in this series. But yeah, Wrong Turn, I'm not a really big fan of this franchise. I only like the first 2 movies, but if I had to recommend it, yes, watch if you want to, watch the first movie. It's worth watching. I like how it's like a modern take on like The Hills Have Eyes or like Deliverance. It's kind of like a mixture of The Hills Have Eyes and Deliverance. Mutated hillbillies and all that. It has a decent amount of gore in it. Like I said, the best death in the movie is when that girl gets her head cut off from like right here and all that. But anyways, that's my review.